Charles Darwin suffered for over 40 years from long bouts of vomiting, gut pain, headaches, severe tiredness,
Severe tiredness
problems, and depression. I think the depression part was just all of the other things, right?
Yeah, he's got ass cancer, he's got a nail stuck in his eye, and he's depressed. Maybe if we fix the depression, it'll fix the other two things. Let's start with that. Keep on sounding, honeys.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah, everybody.
And welcome to Mind Under Matter. This is one of two Valentine's Day episodes. Why two? Because I already know we're going to have a lot of fun stuff to talk about. We're going to be talking about mating behavior, all sorts of other fun things. And I wanted to allow time in the second episode in case we felt like branching off into other topics, because on this one, we like to put out episodes leading up to a holiday, give you some ideas, some things that you learn about it, so when the holiday comes around, maybe you can impress your mate with mating fun facts and little bits of science or something like that, get you in the mood. And it just so happens that Darwin, the inventor of evolution, his birthday is February 12th. So Charles Darwin's birthday, February 12th. Maybe no one's changed human life as much as the discovery of evolution. I would go so far as to say.
Is he the main guy? Because you know how sometimes they're like, or not sometimes, but you know, you think of Edison, then it was also Tesla, and then Gutenberg made the printing press, but also this Chinese guy made it on rice paper 12 years before or something.
Exactly. And
was he the only one?
You're exactly right. And it's some of the stuff that we're going to get into, and it leads into the debates around sexual selection pressures and how we think about mating today. He was so. I'll give you guys, the audience, an overview of what's in my mind to talk about, and then we're gonna go off in a zillion different directions and kind of pull it back together and everything else. But what I would hope to lay down is we've talked a little bit about, by the way, if you're just like tuning in and this is your first episode, because it's just Ramin and I, we get to keep on building on ideas and building on ideas. Each episode should be able to stand alone, but you're going to get a hell of a lot more in terms of following along with some of the bigger concepts. If you've listened back to past things, like when we talked about the Red Queen hypothesis, or some of the other evolutionary principles that we've talked about in the past. But I want to talk about just a little bit about Charles Darwin's impact, and then some of the infighting at the time that then led to some competing ideas about sex itself and about mating behavior, and how the kind of the evolution of theories of evolution have evolved over time.
Evolution is just so recursive, huh? There's the evolution of the things describing the evolution, and then even those are evolving.
It literally, evolution just means change over time. You cannot not believe in evolution, because you would have to believe that nothing changes over time.
It used to only apply to biology, and unless I'm remembering this wrong, but I remember McKenna talking about how the word evolution, like, people didn't like, or the scientific community didn't like it if you used it to describe something other than genes, like evolution equals genes. If there ain't genes, it ain't evolution. But it's like, what about the evolution of galaxies and stuff like that? And yeah, it's across the board. There's everything changes and is reorganizing itself to some purpose. I don't know, to greater complexity, organization, longevity. Who knows?
It's doing something. Purpose up in the air. The hair skeptical. We're actually going to talk a lot about that. And in fact, it's one of the things that I've been thinking about lately in terms of evolution is just how much we like finding patterns and describing patterns, so much so that even scientists themselves overly perceive them sometimes when they're and make false connections. And that's just a part of how the human brain works. And that's what the machine of science is meant to hopefully train people away from doing. The machine of science. I'm now picturing just like the craziest looking.
Give me robot. 2 more beakers.
First off, friendly banter. Do you do the Valentine's Day stuff?
We do. We have a ball, but we don't book a restaurant the day of, like that kind of thing. But we'll do stuff. We'll
you don't go out on Valentine's Day. I mean, unless it's like you're with someone new and it's like you have to do it. So everyone that's actually in a real relationship knows to not go out on Valentine's Day. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, we do. We have fun, but it's not like it's not a pressury thing. Like, what did you get me this year? It's like we both have fun doing it and getting each other whatever thing and picking out a vacation or getting a good dinner or something. It's fun. It's fun to. I don't like anything that when there's pressure on it, but if there's no pressure on it, then why not participate in a fun day?
Yeah. Big time. Oh, speaking of fun days and fun holidays. Special announcement. This is based on a riff that Ramin had when we were talking about we did a Q&A episode recently, which we loved. We're going to integrate them, make them a regular part of the show. We did an episode that from both Instagram and Patreon people asking us questions. One of them was about if we go 200 years into the future or the past, what would we prefer? And Ramin discovered that 200 years from now is 2222. And then we riffed about how it should be basically International Mum Day on February 22nd of 2222. And so we're making February 22nd International Mum Day from here on out. We've been looking for an opportunity like this. We didn't know when. Ramin especially is really, I am too, but Ramin likes world building a lot.
I love world building.
we both
I'm even
both
getting
have
into
grand ideas, but in like different ways.
Yeah, we do. Yours are like practical and have to do with the real world, and mine are like ornate about like what kind of hat should we wear on Monday? How much should we charge for the hat? Where do we get the cheapest materials, and where do we get the strongest children to do the labor for the least amount of compensation? Do we have to compensate them? Can we say we're compensating them, but then the money is going into a fake bank account, which is just a website that I populate with fake numbers?
This is fantastic because, and maybe we'll kind of work through this together. One of the things that we're going to be exploring is the role of evolution, the competing ideas in evolution, and pitting decadence against utility in a lot of different ways, and in terms of mating behavior and everything else, kind of wasteful, like what seems from the utility economist perspective as wasteful, from the romantic artist perspective is beauty and
well, yeah, isn't that like the utility is the flex of showing that look at the decadence I can produce.
Yeah.
So that's the utility of it, but it has no utility in itself.
Yeah. Those are the very things that we're going to discover. Hopefully, as I thought about it more, I just spent the last couple of days just kind of sitting around thinking about the topic, because it's something that I've explored a lot of, like science of mating behavior stuff in the past, and was obsessed about it for like 10 years ago or something like that. When I first got into this stuff, I was always into science.
Was it because of horniness, or was it because of your head, or was it both? Because like specifically the obsession with the mating, was it like, why is my life controlled by this? Or was it strictly from the intellectual angle?
Great question. Both and neither at the same time. So there was just like more going on than that. I was already into like evolution in terms of I really believed in it, and I would read some stuff here and there, and I guess I kind of tended to gravitate toward the utility of it, like the usefulness of how we evolved. And around the time shortly after you and I met, I went through I had a rough ending of a relationship. Moved in with a different girl, and that was like it was sort of like a why am I doing this sort of situation. And it was like, why am I with this person? And we'd also,
and why is she screaming into my butthole?
And And
that's an old reference from one of your bits. That's not a left
I
field
screamed
thing.
into her butthole. That was a fun.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I like to do like funny joke things with orifices around. That's the thing that I like to do. I like to if you're dating me and I just like get a random boner and you're just like on a couch watching TV, you'll probably like turn wondering what's on your shoulder, and it's my boner there. That's just what you can look forward to if you're a lady.
I can't. They probably don't care if I said their name, but I'm just not going to. But someone else was describing that their boyfriend used to wake them up by slapping them in the face with their appendage and then saying, "Wake up, the McRib is back."
Boners are so stupid, and there is fun to be had with them for sure. Probably guys like boner jokes more than ladies. It's up in the air. But it
is a one-way street, because it's
not totally. What's that?
In what way?
Well, there's.
I was just saying that men's stand-up is like often all dick jokes.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe not all the time, but like there's no criticism for it. But then if it's a woman, it's like, oh, all she does is talk about her vagina. But
she's talking about her vagina again. Oh, that's true. There's there's plenty to criticize there.
In that way, it's a one-way street.
But in terms of if you're in a relationship, how many like are the dick tricks or whatever more amusing to you or the lady? Depends on the lady. There's definitely I found that there's some of the criteria to make like a boner, like a surprise boner, be funny is like it has a lot to do
draw
with
a Pinocchio face on it.
Oh, that's good. But also it has a lot to do with the length of time you've been like there holding the position before it's noticed. That's fun. Like if it's been like 5 minutes and then she looks over and realizes that's what it's been on her shoulder for the last 5 minutes. There's that makes it funnier. That's one of the criteria. And then the situational. It is weird
to not check that something's on your shoulder.
So yeah, I had when this new girl and I first we had eaten mushrooms together, and we had watched like the Animal Planet at one point during the mushroom trip, and we were already connecting, but we had like a strong connection over this. And so when we first started when we started living together, we had which happened way too fast. We had like she smoked way more weed than I preferred to. So of course I was just like smoking more weed than I normally do because it's a new relationship. I'm receptive. Okay, this will be weed Shane. And we found ourselves watching a lot of Animal Planet stuff and whatnot. And I found myself like writing a lot of animal jokes. And I was writing a lot of relationship jokes because I was in this new exciting relationship. I just went through this horrific thing. And so and then I was like always trying to figure out how I'm such a fuck up. Like things were going pretty well for me in my career. Like not bad. I mean, a lot of comics would have been happy to trade places with my position.
Oh, you were killing it then. I mean, you're killing it now because you're on a show with me, but
right. Yeah.
But before you were killing it without the best part. Yeah.
I was killing it solo before, and I got obsessed with like, what the fuck is wrong with me? Like, why do I make such stupid decisions? And at the same time, my representation was like pushing me so hard to come up with some TV show or something like that. And I had no interest in writing a script or any of the other, like their idea. Nothing was in the idea of a docuseries, and like exploring bigger ideas always appealed to me. And I just eventually started making connections. Like I'm writing these relationship jokes. I'm writing these animal jokes. I'm watching all these, like learning all these things about animals while high and watching the Animal Planet. I'm like, that's interesting. And comedians just have so much free time, really. And so I just like looked into stuff. I just spent a lot of time. I only read science. I only have ever read science stuff. I don't read fiction or anything. And so I just started looking into the science of like mating behavior, being like, I wonder if this could be a TV show, because I liked kind of pushing boundaries in an aw shucks kind of way. And it was a way of like getting away with more things, because it's like sex and everything, but it's about animals and, and
it is so much more acceptable when we talk about it from the animal kingdom, because you can watch like gorillas have unconsensual, I don't, is it rape in the gorilla kingdom? I guess not.
No,
or it is,
not with gorillas.
It seemed like it when I saw it, though. It really had. It seemed tense. It didn't seem like the female gorilla wanted to.
Yeah. In captivity, I could. Well, that's a tricky thing to sort out. But typically gorillas are like silverback gorillas. They're huge. They have a harem, and they're just competing. And the top guy gets the entire harem, and that's all that it's about. No, that doesn't necessarily mean like every woman's like crazy into that guy or whatever. Maybe it's just easier to be with him than whatever pain in the ass other situation, or to be nagged or harassed or whatever.
Like a social media thing. Like, oh, is this the one we're all using now? Okay.
Yeah. And I'm drinking some champagne, by the way, since it's Valentine's Day.
Nice.
Episode.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's
Oh, crap.
Day.
I forgot to call it Valentine's Day. I've been meaning to switch over to times, and I've been meaning to mispronounce more stuff like February and espresso and stuff. But Valentine's is a good one.
February? Are we saying that?
February.
Are we trying to say that now as a culture?
I don't know. I just threw that one in.
February? I think we keep it as we were always saying it, right? What are your thoughts?
Oh yeah. But in the joke though, saying it wrong. And that's why Valentine's Day is the one I want.
So I get obsessed with this stuff, and then I eventually I start having questions, like thoughts of my own, ideas of my own, and not finding, looking and searching for answers for them, and like reaching out to authors of books and things like that to ask them follow-up questions. And this was
Dr. David Buss, how to get a gorilla to hang out with you, or whatever the book's called. What's the book called?
Evolution of Desire, I think, was one of his big ones. But he also had he did some stuff about like he writes some stuff about the darker. I haven't read his new book, but like he wrote one, The Murderer Next Door or something like that, about evolution and sexual selection, the amount of violence that it leads to, like not just throughout the animal kingdom, but differences within humans, and like the the rates of abuse from a stepfather compared to a biological father, and this and
who
that.
does it more, step?
Oh, by a long shot.
Oh, damn.
All those genes, baby. Yeah, brutal. Watch out.
What do you mean,
stepdads.
all those genes?
Because stepfathers don't have a genetic interest. They're just
so you're saying the lack of genes. Yeah,
they're just paying the cost of a child that has no genetic benefit to theirs. And then there's like a lion that
kills the cubs. Kills the cubs and then makes his own. From scratch.
Yeah, she starts
or not from
ovulating.
Scratch. I mean.
It's funny. I always assume it's funny once you start to learn like just weird shit, and then you just assume other people know about like infanticide. And like I don't know why. You just like, most people have heard the lion thing. In my mind, most people have heard the lion thing. It's like a biology 101 sort of thing. But I posted a thing on Instagram that was because I was blown away. I didn't know that hippos did this too. And I posted just a horrifying picture of a male hippo, like chomping
on a kid,
just chomping on a baby hippo.
Yeah, you're all about nature is metal. That subreddit, Nature is Metal. It's all about just the most ruthless, brutal things in the animal kingdom.
I like it all. I love the beauty. I like all of it. I love animal pictures. But that was like, whenever something strikes me, it's like, oh, I didn't know that, but that's a thing that I know for another thing. I always want to share it. And people were like, I guess its mom didn't want it or something. Oh no.
They're not trying to.
It's not. They're trying to make sense of what's happening. Like, oh no, it's not its mom. Let me clarify. Like, yeah. So,
so maybe it's the two people dressed up in a suit, because normally it's like Disney and the animals are nice and only humans do the bad things. So maybe it's not a hippo, or it's
By the way, hippos can absolutely crush things. They are responsible for like something like 80 deaths a year or something like that. So
human
if you're
deaths?
on a safari, if you're on a safari, I should look it up. Do you want to take a guess?
I want to know who gets killed by hippos. 80 a year. Damn.
Are killed by hippos each year.
I wonder what the numbers are for animals.
Do you want to
total.
guess? Because I feel I have
you said 80
in my mind. Yeah.
Oh,
you want to take a guess?
I'm gonna bump it up. Let's go $1.11. All ones.
I can't. I thought you were gonna go 900 again, like the hot dogs.
I learned my lesson. It's hippos, not hot dogs.
I learned my lesson. 500 people. I was going to advise you to say less. I was going to say you better go less than my guess. It's
900 was closer to my guess. No, actually, it wasn't because I threw that at 11.
I've never laughed so hard at you being unintentionally funny as that hot dog line. So hard I felt bad for doing it, but oh my God. I still just love thinking about a person that eats 900 hot dogs a year because they exist. Someone does eat 900 hot dogs a year, and that's hilarious. And I had never considered that until your guess. But yeah, 500 people a year killed by hippos. They kill more people than almost any other animal on Earth. If I'm
really,
I probably shouldn't say that.
More than any animal. Like I thought ants or something would have been the answer.
Yeah, does that count? Mammal. Let's say mammal.
What does kill the most humans?
How do I Google that? What
animal
kills the most humans? Because shark attacks are like, what do you think shark attacks are? Like
that's probably like 10.
You think
shark
10?
attacks have great
higher.
PR.
They do.
A year. Because they don't want to. It doesn't taste good. They're not like on shore that often. They need to be attracted to blood to get it. Whereas, all right, maybe not 10. Let's say 50 for that. Deaths. Not taking a limb away.
I think
Deaths.
You're spot on. I would say, why am I? Oh man, this is some sad results. So first off, hippos are the deadliest mammal on Earth to humans.
Good job.
I mean, humans are super deadly, which is an important.
And they're fast too. Hippos are fast. You think that they're these fat things that are slow and they have like round teeth, but they're quick.
You have no idea like what a hippo will do to you. They look so cute. I've fed a hippo by hand before in a zoo. Fiona the hippo, Guinness Book World Record, youngest or most premature hippo ever recorded to survive at the Cincinnati Zoo. I met a famous hippo, got to feed it.
How premature are we talking here? Could it fit in your hand when it came out?
Good question. I don't know. It was pretty
I would
young.
love a micro hippo. I don't want to take care of it or anything, but like
Get a
I
pig.
love the realm of it grows up too big, but the realm of, and also nothing gets to take Yosh's territory. Yosh is the king of the everything.
Yosh the cat wouldn't like a pig around?
No, probably not. It gets in the way. He's busy. It needs to smell like him. But the what was that? The little versions of animals that should be big are very cool to me.
Little animal. Oh yeah, of course.
Miniature horse.
Oh yeah, of course.
And it has to be scaled down properly. Like it shouldn't have like really short legs or something. Like it should really just look like a miniature version of the thing that the big one is.
So we got bears, deers are killing people, dogs kill people, tigers.
Deers kill through impaling or through going through a windshield, so like accidentally killing something.
Oh, good question.
Because I bet a lot die because they're crossing the street, or they're maybe they are attacking the car because it's their enemy and they don't know what a car is.
We got like mosquitoes. They're thrown in there, which to me doesn't count. And
it's so indirect too, like because they're like transferring malaria to or something. So that's the malaria that killed you, not the mosquito. I'm talking it has to chomp you.
Yeah. You need a chomping because all those little things. That's what people don't get. It's the little predators that are killing all of us. Tapeworms, roundworms. We got all sorts of bugs. Flies are landing on people. stuff like that. Snakes kill 50,000 people a year. Snakes.
Yep. But there's lots of snakes, like lots of different types of them.
Yeah, that's true.
But still, 50K is a lot.
Dogs are killing 25,000 people a year? Wowzers.
Can you look up the whole, I mean, we shouldn't stay on it forever, or should we? Can you look up the total number of animal, like how many people a year are killed by all the animals?
That's kind of where it just was.
Where does it rank? Because I know heart disease is number 1, cancer's 2, homicide.
Well, they're throwing mosquitoes into this animal thing, and that's bullshit if you ask me. How many things get chomped? I mean, does a snake chomp?
Snake is a venom one, but I'm going to give it credit because it's venom, whereas the mosquito isn't doing it with its venom. It's just like it's passing diseases around.
I feel like you're going to get...
It's an entrepreneur. It's a middleman.
Just
a snake makes a product.
Cursory, just quick, like taking a gander at some numbers here. I would say that it's like 100,000 a year or something like that. But hippos are, maybe I was wrong that why did I think hippos were because crocodiles are getting about 1,000 people a year. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's pretty good for a crocodile.
One of my favorite genre of videos is cats chasing away big animals such as crocodiles, bears, tigers, and they just don't back down. And the bigger animal is terrified and they just run off. They just don't want to deal with it.
Oh, that's what the hippo is, the world's deadliest large land mammal. So you just add enough qualifiers onto anything, and it's the world's most this and that. But it's both, though, right? Unexpected.
It's land, but it also pretends to be a rock a lot of the time, right? Like pretends to be a stepping stone.
Yeah.
In the swamp.
Yeah, I think are hippos because are hippos the ones that were cows that evolved back into the water?
Oh, they're like Australians.
I know
like
whales
how
did
Australia is a penal colony from the England or something.
So yeah.
They came up for a bit and then took what they wanted and then they started to go back.
Yeah, they're cool. like dolphins. Dolphins are like wolf-like descendants. They came up for a while and they're like, "Are you serial?" Go back. Yeah, I'm serial.
You're telling me that they came up for a bit, became not a wolf, but became kind of wolf-like, and then they said, "Fuck this, let's go play in the ocean and sing and play games."
If you dissect a dolphin, it will have little hind paws. A little skeletal, vestigial meaning no longer of use, hind skeletal paws and its tail there. Yeah, they just crawled back in. They're like, fuck this. And then it goes the other way. Like sloths went in because of some climate conditions over like millions of years. Some giant land sloths went in, became like pure aqua sloths, and then they crawled back out again. Things will just dip in, dip back out. Yeah.
That's so cool. You could change teams and go back. I mean, throughout the course of millions of years, but still.
It takes a
while.
I
would love to see perhaps a diagram of this nature exists out there somewhere, but to trace back every animal that you see walking around today throughout its whole history. Like see it go back to wolfness, back into the water. Like what is it? Because there's the very basic ass one, which we have as our logo, which is just from the sea to the land to the computer, and then it becomes transcendent to the angel gods. Hooray. Right. or the opposite, where it becomes the man slouching down in front of the computer and then like, oh, we've lost our way. We're not supposed to be looking at screens all the time. We have to have an archaic revival and start putting our hands back in the soil and feeling soil again.
I'm glad that you brought that up, because there's a lot of real misunderstandings about evolution, which is that evolution is like has something planned out in advance, and that there is a suppose that there is
it's living paycheck to paycheck
to be. Oh, yes, exactly. That's
it doesn't have a 5-year career plan. It's like, what way should we adjust to? Kind of like the way a flower is like following the sun.
Yeah, and that might be, that sometimes strikes people as discouraging in terms of being purposeless or something, but it also is. But you're damned if you do and damned if you don't, because the other way is determinism, and people don't like that either. Like, we're going to talk about mating behavior, and people do big pushback and be like, don't tell me this is the way that I'm supposed to mate and this or that. And I'm not. No one is. Evolution's not either. Just like things work out in certain ways. They go all sorts of weird directions, and no one's really to know. The Big Bang, to your point at the beginning of the episode, and we've touched on this before, there was unstable elements. It's not that those unstable elements were somehow inferior to stable elements. We just like the stable elements because we're here because of them. There was nothing wrong with unstable elements. They're probably fucking awesome elements. They just did not last. And we're here because of stable elements. Same with when you think about the phenology, the tree of life going back through time. You think about that first little bit of life, and you think about this perfect directionality and like all of the things that happened to get to, but you should think about the, like, that first, our like Adam and Eve, like first tiny little blip of like little bits of DNA packets that are passing a gene on and coming together. There was life bubbling up here and there 1,000 times before that first one that actually replicated and survived and brought to. It could have gone a zillion different ways. There could have, like, one other little packet had it been a different day on like a different spot where a rock was like a little warmer, or a little spot had a little more water in it or something like that. Like this whole planet could be like, spiders could be already creating webs around the galaxy with spider spaceships
Children of Time
and stuff like that.
Have you read it yet?
I haven't, no.
Oh, okay. No, cool. Because that's Children of Time, as I've brought up like 7 or 8 times so far. But yeah, the spiders evolving, and you get to see what spider culture would be like at scale, like to the like intergalactic scale. Like, how would they structure stuff? What are their values? What are their downfalls? What deep evolutionary instincts are they trying to suppress? Because it's not good for high society, that kind of thing. But in terms that's of fun. There wasn't just the one perfect Adam and Eve. Like, you see that with trees. Like, the trees drop all these seeds everywhere, and not all those seeds are gonna go become a tree, but maybe one of them will, out of like 10,000.
Yeah, it's such a mixed bag. We see this perfect. I mean, of course, we care about the thing that we specifically are attached to, our ego. How could you not? Like, what? At the end of the day, what's it matter? I of course, you'd want to care the most about the reason why you are here and you exist, but it's hard to conceptualize like near infinite number of dead ends that happened on that evolutionary tree, the things that could have been. And it's not because it's not just, as we get into kind of Darwinian evolution and everything, it's not just the thing that survived the best in every circumstance. You know, if you think about, I was thinking about the like Civil War and stuff. Remember when wars, they used to just,
or real one. Yeah.
Real one. When wars, they would just get dressed up conspicuously and just stand in a line and march toward each other
with the little guy at the snare drum at the front.
It's not like a tremendous amount of skill to be like the guy next to you dies and you don't die. Like, you're both just idiots standing perfectly in a line waiting to get shot. It wasn't like you were better at surviving a bullet wound or dodging or anything. It's just you didn't get shot. The guy next to you got shot. That's
Rules
a lot
of warfare
evolution.
is so strange, isn't it? Because they do that because that's what they agree upon, right? Like it's like we will agree to a single file line. We're not savages. We are at war. We're men at war, and so like we're gonna wear the right nice outfit. We will agree to war at this time. Not all of it, of course. There's surprise, sneaky betrayal attacks and stuff, but it seems like there should. Why would there be any rules if you're at war?
It does seem that, and we still have them. We have them with like nuclear war, biowarfare, and you can understand why a reasonable species would be like, all right, here's the rules. Tons of species do that all the time. There's a lot of ways of posturing and signaling information within species that are to say like, all right, let's size each other up. Okay, you know what? You win. No sense in me losing this battle, but also no sense in you losing your foot because of this. Like, let's just agree that you win. It is what it is.
Or the Game of Thrones champion thing, like your greatest champion versus our greatest champion. And then so we can spare the lives of these 10,000 troops by just pitting our best against your best.
I'm still
I wish we did that with
this. Yeah.
I wish we did that with controversies on, day-to-day stuff, but then otherwise they wouldn't get the clicks and they wouldn't get drawn out and they wouldn't get to divide us into our warring factions and so on. But
yeah,
feels like there's a controversial figure or something like getting in trouble. It's like, okay, well, you have to debate now versus this best guy on the other side. You have to at dawn.
For all of the criticism of fighting on Twitter, is like, I would rather fight with someone on Twitter than many fights in history were way worse than us hurting each other's feelings on Twitter. And a lot of times it might be a dude thing as well. Yeah, whales did. I was just double checking to make sure that I wasn't crazy. But yeah, whales were a four-legged thing on a riverbank that walked back into the ocean over a period of
fuck this.
It's
like just being a school bus and trying to walk around and feed yourself when you can eat whole schools of fish.
Yeah.
In the ocean. Yeah. Why would you bother? For what? So you could have TikTok?
I mean, if you're in the ocean and you get to swim around, you're flying.
Yeah.
But they definitely want to
and they have music. They make songs and they share it and they get to like adjust. They add to the song from what I understand.
Speaking
from what
of
I
romance,
understand is a great phrase. Yeah.
Speaking of romance, whales are like, I don't know a lot about whale mating at all, but there's some brutal brutal fucking mating just throughout all of life, always has been. Males or whales rather, male whales, like pretty romantic. Seems like if you see videos of whale courtship, it's they're singing, there's like a little bit of chase, there's gentle touches. It's got all of the, it's interesting because whales and I think elephants too, and humans, is it whale? It might be dolphins. I might be thinking of dolphins, and dolphins are fucking horrific when it comes to mating. So rapey. Anyway,
yeah, they're number one, I think.
They're up there. Ducks and dolphins, two rapiest species for sure. All right. Well, screw it. Let's go back in time to Darwin. First of all, if you go all the way back to episode 0, we have we talked about Camante de Buffon, who at this time there were these ideas to explain the diversity of life centered around these centers of origin things that were like, okay, well, God didn't create every single little species out there, every single type of dog or whatever. It was each of them came from this center of origin, and they all devolved in a certain way. So there's like one perfect wolf or something like that, and then everything else kind of just devolved because you can't be great forever. And this explains human diversity. Like us Europeans, clearly the best. Why? Because we say so. And according to our theory, all the other ones are just like, oh, well, sorry, but this center of origin thing, this diversity that's happened, you just like lost some stuff along the way. So those were like some of the working theories by the time Darwin hits the scene, like a couple centuries later or so, century later. And so Darwin came at a good time. He was interested. He was raised.
How old
religious.
Was he at the time?
He was pretty young.
That's weird that when we think of Darwin, we think of the big Santa Claus looking version of him, but all the work that he's famous for is from when he didn't have the big beard, right?
Yeah. Way before, and a lot of his. I
guess that's not as trustworthy then.
It's. He did live to be 73 years old. So first of all, I've actually never read Darwin's work. I've never read an autobiography on Darwin, but I've read so many books that just refer to the history of all of these things the thing is, if you go back and you look at, I just don't have a fondness for going back to read like,
the way it was written.
There's a lot of stuff that gets lost in translation, and it's confusing because you don't know all of the things that we've learned since then, you know? So you read a new book, you get excited about it, and you go spreading it around, not knowing that you're spreading around 150-year-old information.
Do they update it? Like, I mean, you update it in terms of you write your own book based on that, but do they ever go in and update Darwin's Origin of Species as though it were software and like we patched up this part is obsolete, we changed this, kind of like a teenage chicken soup Bible for teens kind of thing?
Well, they should, because words change over time. Like I like Darwin's use of the word fitness meant a lot more of what the average person would think of as fit. Well, no, like muscular, fit, strong. Yeah. Whereas most evolutionary biologists now would talk about inclusive fitness, which is the ability to pass genes on, which is just how many genes get passed on? We don't care if that species is big, strong, fit, survives, replicates, whatever. If the genes get passed on through whatever means, then that's fit. And the constraints are surviving and reproducing, because you need to survive long enough to reproduce. And in a lot of species, it can help to survive long enough to reproduce more, or to take care of your offspring and help in their reproductive efforts of raising their offspring, and so on and so forth. But it's all inclusive fitness is all of it. It's not about the individual anymore.
The family.
So, yeah.
Or not the immediate family, but the whole
whole
system.
Timeline.
And I think he never said survival of the fittest. That's something that gets incorrectly attributed to him. That was actually Apocalypse from X-Men. That was about survival of the fittest. Darwin actually never said the word evolution. He never even said the word species. He never said the word animal.
That's the weirdest
thing. Those last
thing.
three are fake, but he never said the survival of the fittest thing, I think.
Yeah, and what he did say about that was like played up quite a bit. And so by the time he came around, modern agriculture for his time was already doing a lot of artificial selection. Already a lot of like, I like this steer, let's mate it with this cow over here. And so there was already
that's my wife.
Lots of opportunity to. Sometimes you say stuff like that and people are like, write me, you're like, you missed Ramin's joke about that. Like, no, he says a million jokes all the time.
I don't want you to stop. I want to sneak it in, and I want you to keep going on the point, because it's for the listener. It's not for us.
Yeah. So it was, to me, it was a idea that was ready to be plucked. It was a very fertile idea that was there were people thinking about similar things. And then Darwin was kind of this well-to-do guy that got the advantage of, one, seeing some of this modern agricultural selective pressures, but then also getting to see the world and traveling around and finding bones to weird species and going to the Galapagos Islands and all of these different things. And so he was just kind of set up to discover these things, and he started working on these theories. He was really cautious in his thinking, as far as I can tell. So it's said. It seems like he was really careful and really diligent, so much so that he was very accepting of other people's idea, like a lot of correspondence back and forth to anyone that wanted to like hash anything out with him. And so he started working on this thing with Wallace.
Who's Wallace?
Darwin and Wallace. Let's see. Alfred Russel Wallace. And Wallace was like a little bit newer to some of these ideas. He was younger at the time. Darwin had been working on this stuff for like almost a couple decades, working on this On the Origin of Species book. And then he started consulting Darwin, and then they were like going to write a paper together and stuff. And then Darwin realized, hey, this dude's about to break my theory to the whole world. I better just finish this book now and release it, and got the jump on him. Darwin definitely
That's
had
nice of
way
him.
more
Instead
experience.
of hitting him over the head with a big bone he found or something. Hey, Wallace, I want you to look at this new paragraph I'm working on.
Yeah, you're right. He could have.
Especially back then, because back then it was just okay to kill anybody. Or I might be conflating this with Western movies, but it just seemed like one-on-one duel stuff. It just was less serious than now.
So basically, Darwin got the jump on the idea, and it took off on the origin of species, took off like wildfire. Like it changed the world like near instantaneously. Darwin was like a really nice guy. He wasn't, he was like quiet and careful. He wasn't in your face about things. He wasn't denying it. He had a religious upbringing. He wasn't necessarily denying the existence of God or anything like that. He was just arriving at these conclusions. In fact, creationism really held evolutionary theory back so much because a lot of the evolutionary theorists really truly believed creation. They weren't out to be like, we'll show you how stupid you were. They were legitimately trying to help the field and understand better, like, creation. And so they couldn't understand, like, how could this happen in 10,000 years? So early evolutionary theories were like, well, maybe the Bible is just a little off. And it was like 50,000 years or something.
Yeah.
Like 50,000. So their ideas of how old the earth was back then are like, well, what if it was like 100,000 years old? And people are like, they just crazy. Keep taking on more debt. Insane.
Yeah, you're 2,000 years of debt to 50,000 to now we're at billions.
And just no one could have ever, like, no one could possibly conceive. If you could go back and tell Darwin the life on Earth is 4.6 billion years old, he'd be like, oh, thank God. That makes everything make way more sense, because that was the struggle of trying to figure out how in the world do these like changes take shape over generations of time.
Did you think the first time you heard that the Earth was 4 billion years old and that the universe is 14 billion years old, did you think to yourself, like, that's pretty good? Like, I would have thought in the scale of the universe, like, we'd be way newer, but to be 4 billion years old in a universe that's 14, that's a pretty old object right there.
In fact, I think that it really, I think it lends itself to life on other planets and galaxies and things like that. I think it would be like almost the moment the Earth cooled down enough to meet these certain conditions for life as we know it right now, like within hardly any time at all, within like a half a bill, there was just life started bubbling up everywhere, and then it just kind of took off. And so why wouldn't that happen in lots of places all over? So yeah, I mean, I think that it's saying it seems like a short amount of time for all of this to...
Not necessarily a short amount of time, but rather the Earth is older than I would have thought it would be in the context of the whole universe. I would have thought the universe is 14 billion, thus the Earth is maybe like 1 million years old, but billions of years old in a universe that's only 14 billion. I'm like, that's pretty old.
Yeah, we're old AF. And humans like 200,000. Oh, I said something wrong, and we have smart audience.
Nonsense.
That
We've
listen.
Never said anything wrong.
But I was making a point about how the universe is like 14 billion years old. Life on Earth 4.5 billion. See, I almost did it again. 4.5 billion years old. sexual reproduction kind of like around 2 billion, the zygotes.
2 billion years of funkin'.
Yeah, but that's like diseases swapping DNA. It's a very different
Still
thing
counts.
than like male. It does. But male and female stuff, 1.2 billion. And then what I meant to say was 800 million years ago, the first like neurologic system, the first origins of the brain started. I said 800,000 instead, and it had multiple listeners catch it. Very good.
Very good listeners. Yeah, you just forgot a zero in your calculations, but man, I always hated
just 3 zeros.
I always hated tests where there was multiple choice and the answer was the same number, but the decimal was different. That always pissed me off.
I love a good decimal point. That's a t-shirt. So yeah, that does, but that brings us back to a lot of these things too, is going back to that sex started a long time before a brain did. And once again, the brain arrives at the scene, thinks that it's in charge of everything, making everything happen. Life was going on just fine without the brain. The brain could have never evolved and there'd still be life getting around.
That'd be crazy. A whole universe, like from beginning to end, with no brain anywhere. What if we're in that right now, but with something else? Like there's a slamoozle or something, which is like an even more like cognitive, organizational, controlling thing. But you lived in a universe where the highest thing you had was brain.
Oh, believe me, slamoozles keep me up at night. I don't even like thinking about them. So a lot of this, so 1.2 billion years ago, probably a big part of the male female stuff really early on was avoiding disease. And then that comes in handy in understanding evolutionary theory later on. And I know people might be like, Shane, you're just obsessed with COVID or something. That's just me in my head about it. No. These are things that are like fundamental that I would talk about, years ago, all of the time. It's an absolutely fascinated. There's a woman, Maureen Zuck, that I had on Here We Are.
That's like me mixed with Mark Zuckerberg.
Very on. Yeah.
Or a military Mark Zuckerberg.
And she wrote a book called Riddled with Life. That is like this is the main theory that it explores, which is way worth looking into. There's a lot of theories about why there's so much diversity, and in my opinion, one of the strongest forces was a way of outwitting these little predators of disease and viruses. And that's what
you mean specifically in humans, right?
No, not all specific. Life. All of life, when it 1.2 billion years ago, when males and females started.
Oh yeah.
The reason why there's genders, the reason why there's sex differences is it started because of avoiding virus, swapping genes to swap out the immune system to overcome a rapidly evolving bacteria or parasitic threat that's generations are much quicker, generations by like the second, by the minute, rather than the long period. Cool. Yeah.
That's like, so we have diseases to thank for that, because I like that we live in a world with gender, and there's men and women and trans people and
so do
all
I.
that, which I mean,
there's way more than that.
Yeah,
there's like mushrooms have like 40,000 genders. Did you know that? They just blow
Why is that
spores. it's fucking weird. I don't totally
Does
understand.
that mean like one gender only fits with another of the 72, or
No.
how does that interlock?
I think they can all fucks. I think they just throw. I think the spores just. God.
Why are they genders then, and not like, why is it categorized as a gender if there are so many?
You're asking so many great questions. Let me look it up.
Because that proves that gender is not binary, at least in the big scale of things, but perhaps in humans, it's binary with a scale in between, an infinite gradient.
I'm glad I looked it up. My mind embellished by double. It's 20,000. It's about 20,000 sexes. So that's not, I mean, it's still in terms of what one would expect.
What if we take that gene and put it into humans? Like, what would that look like? An axis that because we're so obsessed with the male-female dynamic. Like, what does the axis outside of that look like? Yeah,
and in terms of like trans and gender swapping and stuff, that's like, there's nothing new under the sun out there. You can look throughout the animal kingdom. There's hermaphrodites, there's homosexuality, there's fish, and even a bird that like pretends to be a different gender than it is. And we can get into all that. Probably some of the more unusual stuff will be better saved for another maybe we should do like a gay pride episode or something
in
like
June,
that, celebrating.
We'll be allies, or we gotta be gay for a month. Just a month though. After that, I'm putting back my camo hat and getting back in my truck. But then for that month, we get to watch Bravo or whatever. Or if we're lesbians, we get to get a ladder and fix stuff. That's the two stereotypes, right?
Yes.
The stereotype is Bravo or fixing cars.
Yeah, there's only two stereotypes, and they're both super helpful. But this is important in terms of where the conversation's going, because we're going to start simple from some of the origins of these ideas and then just keep on piling on really fascinating complexity. And in terms of in going back to what is and what ought to be and this and if you ask me, outside of something like a mushroom having 20,000 species, humans, and this isn't just in terms
species or genders?
Or genders, rather. Humans have, I would say, the most, this is like an egocentric, human-centric thing to say, but show me a species that has more tools in its toolkit, more variety, more adaptiveness. I can't think of any. And I guess it depends on how we're measuring it. But so it is to say that humans have, you look through all of these animals throughout all of nature, and you'd be doing yourself a disservice to not consider that maybe an aspect of a given species is something that humans might do in some way as well. And you'd also be doing yourself a disservice to think that like one specific action in some species is something that just completely determines human behavior. Yeah. So we're like, we are exceptionally fluid in that. Like there's no doubt about that in my mind.
No, the tools are part of who we are. It's like what separates us from the, I don't know, not chimpanzees necessarily, but because I have more tools than all the other animals combined, I bet. Because what do we got? We got like a small monkey that uses a rock to break open a nut. And then you've got maybe a bird that uses a leaf to like pick up water or something. But I have like 18 different titanium drill bits. I've got like 17 screwdrivers, a wrench, hammers, ladders, like that's just one guy that's not even a handyman.
Which is it's a perfect metaphor for the Swiss Army knife that is our brain, that is our like psychology, that is our adaptability, that is our ways of managing different environmental issues. Humans.
And what is the environment? It's everything. It's the whole thing. It's all of it.
It's all of it.
And what is all of it? Well, that's is everything that
Jordan Peterson, so everybody.
It just gets you so emotional thinking about all of it because it's got everything, man. It's everything. And I just kind of get teared up talking about it. And you've brought that to light a lot. You've helped bring that to people, and I applaud you for it. Was it just so good? And it just gets me right here when you do it.
Oh, we got a little JP dropping.
Yeah, it's been a while because we haven't done JP in a while. We haven't had him on the show in a minute.
Well, one of these days, we're going to have Ramin make portraits or even animation of all of the different impressions that he does.
Oh, right. I got to put that on the list.
Yeah, that'll be fun because then once you do impressions, that's a year 2 thing, you know, to give people things to look forward to. We keep on building, but we have vision. And that's a year 2 thing. And so then when you're a deep fake of it, but within your art, no one's doing that out there. That's awesome. So
it just gets me so emotional thinking about doing it.
So, gosh, so much to cover. So what happens is Darwin puts out Origin of Species and on the Origin of Species, and on the Origin of Species is very utilitarian. It's very, so he goes, he sees these different finches on these islands that are so similar in almost every way, but they're so different. They're not so different. There's so many different species of things that are so close to one another, and they have just like a different beak shape. And what is to explain the diversity of all these different beak shapes? And he looks around and he sees that, like, oh, on one part of the island, these finches are predominantly eating this one nut that's very hard. And they have this perfectly adapted beak for eating this particular nut. And then on another part of the island, there's a slightly different finch that subsides on berries, and they have a different beak shape because it requires a different shape for mostly eating berries all day long or whatever else. And so he makes this revelation. And I think there's a book called Darwin's Finch that I haven't read.
Not by him, right?
About not by him.
That's like Tyler Perry's, whatever the movies are called. Also, I wanted to say the fact that I just realized you said it's called On the Origin of Species, and I didn't know that. That's like if the Bible was called Speaking of the Bible, but then people think it's just called the Bible, but really the title is Speaking of the Bible. On the Origin of Species.
Yeah,
like no shit on the, that's what a book is. Book is on the fucking thing.
Evolution of writing, we didn't have the same brevity back then.
Yeah.
And or like I said, it was kind of a rush job too. So
right.
So
right,
maybe there
Wallace,
wasn't a lot of editors involved.
Albert
and I don't think
Russell
he was worried
Wallace.
about it being it was probably, he probably wasn't all that worried about it being sold. I wonder if Darwin knew he was going to like absolutely disrupt everything that we knew when he wrote it. But it did. With his first book, it absolutely it clarified for people everything that and I think it from like at least to the scientific community, it made sense. And he wasn't even a huge fan of the scientific community. He thought most of medicine back at that time was complete horseshit. He had his own ailments and stuff, and was like, fuck it, I'm just going on a cruise.
He had back problems, right?
To explore. Yeah, I forget.
The fact that anyone with back problems traveled back then just blows my mind. I would have been a simple local boy. I would just look at one beak and say, that's good enough for me. That beak is shaped like that because God hand-coded every single person.
What is this? Darwin? I'm just like quickly Googling things, which is not the way to go about it. Jamie?
Actually, it says that it's the opposite. The number you reported was 10 million deaths. It's actually
yeah, but who does deaths. This? Who puts these numbers together anyway?
You did, sir.
After returning from the Beagle in 1836, Charles Darwin suffered for over 40 years from long bouts of vomiting, gut pain, headaches, severe tiredness, problems, and depression. I think the depression part was just all of the other things, right?
Yeah, he's got ass cancer, he's got a nail stuck in his eye, and he's depressed. Maybe if we fix the depression, it'll fix the other two things. Let's start with that. So tell me about your childhood. Where did you grow up? What was it like? What did it look like? What kind of music did people listen to back then? Music is the way we connect through, cross-culturally, even across animals. Like you'll see often dogs will relax when you play different types of music. Some cats even prefer heavy metal to what one would think would be more of relaxing music they would prefer. But I talk about this in my book, the mystery of cat music. Yeah.
You would be the creepiest fucking therapist anyone's ever had, but you'd have some clients.
Yeah, I should get some clients.
That character, not you specifically, but that character.
Yeah.
Imagine going into a therapist, a wild-eyed therapist. That's not the therapist. How's therapy going? Well, my therapist is kind of wild-eyed. When
I walk in, he's just staring. He's not looking at his phone or reading anything. His eyes are just darting around the room.
He has a tendency to rant. He has a tendency to rant rather wild-eyed about his own ideas about life. I'm not sure he's listening.
Is that a brand of therapy? Because the common behavioral psychology therapy is where you sit in a recliner couch thing and then you talk about your family and then they go, and then they occasionally write stuff down. Is there the opposite where you sit and you listen and then the person just rants at you for an hour?
Oh, man.
It's like, let me unpack this.
I want to get
Yeah, so before you tell me about your dad, let me unpack what I'm about to say really quick. Let me finish this point, and then you just keep going for an hour.
Oh, that's the kind of therapy I could provide. I could totally do that. You think
maybe that could be a section of the rumination app, the therapy section. The for people who don't want to talk, the people who are avoiding therapy because they don't want to talk.
Yeah. Hear my problems instead.
Yeah, exactly.
This is, I have ideas for International Mom Day already, but make sure and write them to us on Patreon or on Instagram if you can't afford Patreon or whatever, because I do want some sort of a bizarro holiday for International Mom Day, like. It's just something that makes waves in just weird, stupid ways, like encouraging employees to like throw in a day of free work. Like you work on International Mom Day, but you don't get paid. This one's on me, boss. You just put in a 12-hour shift. Don't pay me for that. That's me appreciating you. You have to buy your boss a gift. just a really loathed holiday tradition.
Yeah, my fucking office doesn't celebrate International Mom Day, so I have to go on vacation with my family instead of working for free.
So Darwin puts out the on the origin of species, lights the world on fire. People see the truth of evolution and blah blah blah, and then what happens is he keeps on studying he keeps on pursuing his theories more. Yeah. And
came out with Nanette. Does Douglas next?
Is that a new special she did?
Yeah, that's like a couple of years old now, though.
I haven't seen Douglas. Is it good? I liked Nanette.
They're both all right. They're not really for me, but they were they didn't suck. They were enjoyable, but I wasn't blown away by either.
Yeah.
Some people, I think it just hit them. But I'll say also the opposite. I wasn't blown away by the Chappelle specials either.
Well, I just thought when I saw the special, I appreciated that she started doing that to like nobody. I think
Wait, started doing what to nobody?
I think she started. What's her name again? Hannah Gadsby.
Hannah Gadsby. Yeah.
I think she started working on that show like in Edinburgh to like, if you've been to Edinburgh, it's a nightmare. It's like the perfect place to do a farewell, I'm never doing comedy.
Oh, I get it.
Show.
Okay.
And then it just became crazy popular. So to see it
much like the origin of species,
this is my fucking suicide note. To watch it as that, I think adds a little something extra to it. And if that's played up, then that's played up, and then that then it doesn't have the same oomph and integrity or whatever else. But that was my impression of it.
Yeah, and I think she even starts the second one by saying, "If you're here because of Nanette, why? Why?"
So Darwin gets like, Darwin starts getting really confused, and this is when the mating stuff comes in. This is just going to be a teaser for next week because, we've spent the last couple episodes just really laying the groundwork down on some like pretty heady. This is
the
how
foundation
life
boys
works.
of comedy.
The foundation boys of
comedy. We put in the foundation. You guys install the cabinets and do the wallpaper and do the everything. We're just all about digging a big hole and then putting a little foundation there. Mm-hmm. Just a little bit.
So the famous peacock feather plumage is there. There's all sorts of these ornate, decadent displays in nature, but the peacock tail feathers were the ones that Darwin discovered and had the insight of what the fuck is going on with these things. He didn't understand, and it drove him crazy. He just, it completely, his theory was so good. It revolutionized the world, but he's being honest with himself. Why the fuck, if everything is so perfectly honed for surviving, why does this stupid peacock have these crazy, huge, beautiful, and only the male has it? How is that helping it live in any way, and it drove him kind of nutty. And and from that, he came upon he discovered the ideas of that he put forth in The Descent of Man, which was the descent of man and the selection of and selection in relation to sex. That was another clunky title. The Descent of Man and selection in relation to sex. So, book like compared to On the Origin of Species, it was a huge flop. First of all of science already shifted to like, oh my God, evolution is this thing. Darwin figured out all this shit. Wow. And then he already destroyed God. He was already like, he didn't try to or anything else, but just like in some people's mind, it was the natural
old
conclusion
model of it. Yeah.
the old model of God was now dead. Like it is no longer compatible with this theory. And this theory is really good.
You can't kill God ever, actually, as a concept of where did anythingness come from. Like you can kill him in terms of he made humans, he made the earth, he made this universe, but like if you keep digging, it's that one unanswerable source thing of like, where did the original source come from? Like, fuck, we can't kill that. But
this
everything
is
above
get into
that,
sexual selection too.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I interrupted. Everything above
No, that was the end of it.
Okay, good. So
good. I thought you would have been glad for me to go on for 5 hours.
No, I was thrilled that I wasn't interrupting you.
Oh yeah.
So the Descent of Man was like it was still popular, but it was a bit of a flop, and it threw a lot of Darwin's own ideas. It confused
into the toilet.
People were just getting used to he had spent 20 years writing On the Origin of Species, drops the bomb. People are still just getting used to this. And then he drops this other idea of sexual selection and it leading to humans. There was lots of, I guess, again, I haven't read either of his books, but I guess, I don't know how many chapters it was. Let's say it was 23 chapters or whatever. He lays down the foundation. What he ended up doing was talking about how female choice is essentially the driving force. Female autonomy and female choice are a huge part of the driving force of evolution. Not that they always have autonomy, not that they always have choice, but that is one of the major driving forces of these inexplicable things like peacock feathers. And then he slowly took his time building this case throughout the book leading to humanity. And then like right in the last chapter of like, what are the takeaways? He hadn't mentioned humans like once. And then it's called The fucking Descent of Man. That's the title of the book. And then like right in the last chapter, he just goes like, so, you know, humans probably evolved from like a furry four-legged thing. Anyway, mic drop.
Oh, by the way, here's your great-great-great-great-grandma. Just little shrew that's just eating on like deer shit and like trying to hide it so no one eats it.
And people fucking hated it.
Oh yeah, they still do. I ain't no monkey. I certainly ain't no four-legged monkey.
But what's crazy is that and this goes beyond like pandering to women who I definitely enjoy and
would love to be admired
prefer. and would love to be admired by, but also probably tend to enjoy the company of more. But Darwin put forth this idea that so he Origin of Species, he killed God, basically. And people were like, that's amazing what you did. And then in his next book, he was like, also, women are in charge. And humans came from apes. And people were like, fuck you, man. They hated it.
What about women? Or would women were not allowed to voice that opinion?
Yeah. Not a big voice at the time. And Wallace, who was like, not publicly, but it was probably like, a thing that he was bitter that Darwin got the jump on, what he was pretty excited to reveal.
Who's heard of
to the
Wallace?
world.
We've heard of Wallace and Gromit. That's it. We don't even know what they're about. Like a moon made of cheese, or who cares?
He started attacking this book and had welcome advocates, and because he wanted to be the one to take over the idea of evolution and be like the new kid on the block, putting like, okay, yeah, Grandpa Darwin did some nice work and everything else, but he's old. He's writing crazy stuff like women are in charge of things, and then went about attacking those theories. And so then it created these like two factions within evolutionary theory between evolution and sexual selection. And Wallace tried to say that they were the exact same thing. Like there is no such thing as like beauty outside of utility. There is no such thing as like this flamboyant display. This flamboyant display is only advertising utility. And that's all that it's doing. Which
is it not?
It's a big part. It's a huge part of what it's doing. But there's a lot more going on than that.
But the root of it is still the flex, though, is it not?
It's a huge part of it. But Darwin had forwarded that beauty was, or my understanding, and now here's where you, the listener, are going to want to look into what I'm saying, because this is where I'm going off of into territory that I don't know much about.
Go balls out, swing them against the wall.
Darwin was advocating much more for beauty just being a thing, and novelty and decadence being a thing that females were selecting for, that weren't always attached to utility, and seeing it in ways that were beyond just this idea that your ability to show this beauty shows just how strong and fit you are. And Wallace was pushing back on that. And so they had a lot of correspondence back and forth. Darwin ends up dying. Wallace kind of starts taking over the field of evolution. And then there was, and then some new ideas came in, which were, what is it? Fisher's runaway. I better look it up.
Fisher's runaway.
Fisher runaway hypothesis. Fisherian runaway. So what Wallace was saying was that if you have this ornate thing like a peacock feather, what you're saying is to a female that doesn't have this thing, because females are always, in most species, just equipped for survival, way more utilitarian.
No colors, no feathers, just bare basic bones, sedan, no leather interior.
Why do males have all this ridiculous flair that's incredibly costly? And the idea is that it's part of it's because of the cost. It's because it is able to overcome that cost, that is what's making it able to survive and reproduce and be selected for. So you have this huge tail feather, and then the female goes, well, why is that guy lugging that thing around? Must be something, he must be so fit that he's able to lug around an unnecessarily heavy tail. And that's to this day a lot of the reasoning of evolution and sexual selection. It's a lot of the things that I believe, but there's a lot more going on than that.
Such as what?
So the Fisherian runaway selection is as follows. So if you're going to spread your genes, you have, so Darwin was kind of thinking, well, not only is a female selecting for a trait and passing that trait on to her offspring, but she's also passing on her preference for that trait. So a female peacock is inheriting, if she has boys, males.
That's why you marry someone like your dad.
Exactly.
You can't escape it. You think you're going to marry the bad boy unless your dad is the bad boy.
Yeah. Nothing to do with all the Freudian horse shit and everything else. Like everyone wants to bone their mothers. No. You inherent preferences for mates. So that female peacock that mates with the guy with the big plumage will have boys that have a big plumage, which will hopefully be successful in future generations of females, and also will have females that inherit the preference for that big plumage. And that's the idea. And so it starts with, this has a lot of utility. This has this display. If you have a bunch of parasites, you can't have these tail feathers. If a predator is chasing you, you can't get away. So because you're still alive and because you still have this beautiful thing, there's something very special about you and your genes. And but then so it starts with that. But then, so you can select for a couple different things. You can select for an ability to survive, which can be transferred onto advertising an ability to survive. But then once you start having a preference, once evolution of a species starts having a preference for an ornate tail feather, I've now had a little too much champagne, but that's fine.
This isn't even about evolution. We're supposed to be talking about chairs.
Once the female starts selecting for that, then it becomes the case that if females are always selecting for a bigger and bigger plumage, and that's how you mate, then the bigger and bigger plumage can have this runaway effect of it can get so out of control that now it's in the way of surviving so much but it has no choice because
it
now
has to get the big NBC logo peacock, and then
if you want to survive, if you want to spread your genes on, yes, you need to survive long enough to spread your genes, but you need to spread you could live to be 800 years old, but if you don't ever reproduce, it doesn't matter at all. You can live to be 2 days old, and as long as you reproduce, your genes get to pass on, and you also need to live long enough to reproduce too. So survival is important, but then this runaway selection pressure happens where now these like really, really ornate, more and more ornate displays get selected for far beyond what they're than the information that they're conferring in terms of survival. And
so it's like that Icarus thing again. You can't just lean into that too far forever. Otherwise, you just end up mating with nothing but feathers, and they can't even fit through the door because it's just feathers.
Exactly. Yeah, and I love that Icarus is a. I love that that's a metaphor for like moderation too, because it's like because they only talk about flying too close to the sun, but it was also about getting your wax
the dampening
wings,
of the wings.
the dampening of the wings is like,
near the ocean.
First of all, is this lesson about moderation and temperance about a guy jumping off of a cliff in a feather costume? Because
but do it in moderation.
But do it in a safe, balanced, reasonable way. Like a little bit of this, a little bit of that. After you jump off the cliff wearing a feather.
Use this contraption I just put together using old Amazon boxes.
Yeah.
I haven't tested it out. Use it, but don't fly too high to the sun.
First time I've done this. I've invented other things. I've invented traps for monsters. Does that monster really exist? I've invented traps for monsters, and now the monsters are chasing us. We need to take this wing costume and jump off of a cliff. All right, sounds legit. Any instructions? Yes, because of the wax that I used. That's I love old-timey things.
Oh yeah. It reminds me of the Lisa Simpson line of saying like, yeah, but by that logic, I could claim that this rock keeps tigers away. And then Bart says, does it? It's like, well, I don't see any tigers around. Do you? Like, I'd like to buy that rock.
So in terms of sexual selection, in terms of what we'll talk about next episode, and get into specifics of a bunch of different species and how all of this works. There's a little push and pull between what about sexual selection is just advertising utility, and then what really just bizarre things are happening that are so let me put it this way. So here's an example, and I'll give a bunch of examples on the next episode. So a turkey, I found myself looking into turkey mating at some point that I don't remember, and who knows how much I'm retaining properly, but is
it good or boring?
No, it's pretty good. It's just like, why the fuck are they so ugly? They're like, they have this big plumage. They got a lot of stuff going on. We want to and then we've selected them and made them fatter and everything. And I found that interesting. But like, why are they? What's with the head? What's going on with all of that? Like, how could you look at that?
Like hanging gullet thing.
Yeah. Anytime you look in the mirror and think like you're ugly or you're having a bad hair day or like a pimple or something like that you're worried about, Just look up the ugliest species on Earth that you can find, which there's like a zillion like weird fish and things like that, and know that there is some weird looking, like, have you ever seen that fish that just like looks like an old man? Like that weird gray fat fish.
Yeah.
And there is,
it was a meme for a while.
yeah, and there's a female that's like, oh, that's a good one. And there's a male that's like, ooh, look at that one. That thinks that's just the sexiest thing in the entire world.
Yeah.
So they studied, I guess they looked at, what is it? Is it the tail feathers? What's going on with the turkey? They have all these things going on. And as is usually the case, females are selecting for a bunch of different factors. But one thing that was peculiar that they found in these, like, probably not perfectly done studies, were that they preferred this gizzard. What the fuck? Why do they want this big red? Like, the redder the gizzard, the longer it is.
The lizard, yeah.
What's going on with that? Is about sound or whatever. And they looked in it at the DNA, and it looked like some of within its genetic code, some aspects of it that might be helpful for its immune system were just happened to be right next to where the gizzard thing is.
Yeah, you live next door to George Clooney, therefore I'm going to go out with this guy, even though looks nothing like George Clooney, but you were his neighbor.
So any female that just happened to be a fucking weirdo and be like, what's that weird floppy thing under that guy's neck? And just happened to have a preference for a weird floppy thing under a neck, just so happened to get the neighbor genes of the good immune system into its offspring, and then that offspring would inherit the preference for that fucking stupid gizzard. The females would, and the males would get the gizzard. But it wasn't like necessarily about utility. It was just like indirectly connected to it. It was just something that they happened across. They weren't, I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, if you go into a doctor's office with all of the modern medicine and they take your blood and they do a million other things and they like check your DNA and everything else, they can't come close to predicting like how long you're going to live or what you're going to die from, in the same way that evolution can just stumble upon shit given millions of years, just stumbling upon weird cues that actually don't have anything to do with anything.
Yeah.
It's like that gizzard link doesn't have anything to do with that immune system, but that attraction toward the gizzard length just happens to, just by pure chance, infer some details about the immune system. And then once you have a preference for that, then the longer the fucking gizzard, the more mating success that turkey is going to have. And then it goes beyond, and then they're just selecting for a weird long gizzard.
Is it tied to it still, or it's not even tied
not
to
always.
it?
And
they're
then
selecting
it can become decoupled, and then they can just be selecting for the ornament that no longer has anything to do with the utility.
So you're getting the worst of both worlds. You're going after the ugly thing, which no longer has the health benefits package that it used to have, or it used to live next to someone with health benefits.
Potentially, yeah. And it's something that I've been thinking more and more about lately, because it's something to consider, because it's too easy to. It's so easy. It's no worries to see. It's no worries to see the pattern and to imagine that the pattern has purpose and utility. And it doesn't always. And sometimes species just end up with a weird fucking lot in life because they've been selected for based on this weird. Sometimes you just end up being a weird male turkey with a fucking strange gizzard that gets in your way and everything else and is flopping around.
And then we
find
only
yourself
eat
being
you
a
once a
lady
year.
Attracted to that. Yeah.
We eat you once a year to celebrate genocide.
Yeah.
That is quite a combination. A big ugly thing because its gene was next to the gene that means a good immune system. And then the whole Thanksgiving thing. Which tune into our Thanksgiving episode to find out what Thanksgiving was all about. But first, continue tuning into this episode and continue to the future one where we do the second part of it.
Yeah. So we should probably wrap up now just because
I wanted to say one more thing, which is kind of a tangent of it. But I think if Hannah Gadsby and Dave Chappelle were real comedians, if they were truly comedians, they would like work on whatever their next special is. And then before filming it, give the material to each other. Hannah Gadsby should give the material to Chappelle, and Chappelle should do the Hannah Gadsby material. Don't advertise it as that. Just tell no one and just do each other's act for that. And then just release it like that. That would be true comedy.
Yeah.
They won't do it though. But
yeah.
If they did, they would earn my gold stars.
Stage talking about his like sexual trauma.
Yeah. Hannah Gadsby just slapping the microphone on her knee, taking a cigarette break. When I go out, I make memories. Hell, when I go out, I make history.
And all of that's advertising at the end of the day. So I guess the next I was hoping to get a little further in the story, but this is always the case that I realized that there's just so much to cover and it's very difficult to explain thoroughly. Thanks for helping me make sure that I was saying things in some clear way. But yeah, I have in terms of Valentine. So the reason why some of this stuff is important in terms of like going forward, what you need to consider as being like, is this really a pattern or is it not? Is because sometimes ideas are so fucking fun. And a lot of times you go, shit, there was just other things going on there that I didn't realize. And you got to remind yourself of that all the time. So like, for example, one of my favorite ones, this is like a Shane Mauss hypothesis discovery that I actually think that some people have speculated on, but as far as I thought of it independent of any, I've asked enough people since then and other people have maybe speculated, but so why do we give people flowers on Valentine's Day? Well, potentially, so flowers are definitely a sign of future life. They're a pretty honest indicator. We got to talk about honest indicators next week. I'm going to write that down. But they're a pretty honest indicator of...
Would it be a better clickbait to call it lying? Or it's different than lying?
Yeah, I mean, an honest indicator is the opposite of lying because it's showing it's not cheating. An honest indicator is and this is where these theories go. So it goes into so evolution splits off into factions of this is all about utility and the men are actually driving this, which was Wallace's thing. and they're driving it by advertising how strong and mighty and how fit they are. And then the Darwinian ways of thinking about things, which were like, no, females are just selecting for all of this. And then around 1970, so from the time like Wallace died, early 1900s, to around the 1970. So in evolution had a horrific time. There was like genocide going on, and
you mean the study of it, or you mean all of it?
Yeah, the study of it there, you know, because there's eugenics and stuff happening in there with utility stuff, and people just weren't getting it. They weren't quite. They were like, I'm surprised really they got fresh it the first to the time. Idea. Yeah, they were very fresh to the idea, and even Fisherian runaway selection. Fisher was a brilliant mathematician who gave up on his own idea of this too soon, because it gave a lot of power to both females and to just randomness within systems. And he was like kind of, I think he was like sort of on board with eugenics and stuff, and like everything has utility and we need to select. Oh my gosh, we need to start selecting for utility in the same way that we select our cattle for utility and that sort of thing.
Slippery slope. I know it's a fallacy, but sometimes the slippery slope is real. Sometimes slopes are slippery.
Sometimes they are greasy cliffs. And in that case, it was. And then around the 70s, which kind of coincided with, and again, this isn't me pandering. This is just like as it is written. As history shows, in the 70s, the idea of like sexual selection teased apart from the utilitarian survival view started making some headway again. And it just so happened, it might not have been connected with anything, but it did just so happen to correlation, causation, but it did correlate with the women's liberation movement and everything else at the time, with like asking for more rights, asking for more pay, asking for just getting quite a bit more equality in that era. And that's right when all of the stuff that I'm interested, that I'm like more familiar with, that's when all that shit popped off. And it kind of
and not to go
kind of went away
far.
but when you said in the beginning the idea of like survival of the fittest is like bullshit, right? Like it is, like Darwin never said any of that. That all of that got hijacked by people like Wallace that loved his first book so much and took it too far and stopped listening to Darwin's own words and work afterwards. And then it got hijacked by dudes for like a really long time until the 70s. I'm not saying that to pander. I'm saying that as like a matter of like, I believe it's exceptionally important to understand the truth of the story of life, because it has real implications. And we'll get into that later on. But,
But I wish we don't look at the whole work of people. It's like we only have enough room to see the one thing you like, and then you paint the whole picture around that, which I think with Malcolm X that happened too, because the first part of it is like, advocating for violence against the evil whites. And I'm not saying don't advocate for violence against the evil whites. Kill Shane, leave me alone. I'm a brown person, indigenous woman of color, obviously. Yeah, but then he went to Mecca, and then he started to kind of abandon that and became more peaceful afterwards. But then he's just remembered as the quotes that are like the more angry ones. But then later in life, he's more like kind of chilling out. Same with Patrice O'Neill, was like very heavily misogynist humor. And then like as he's getting into his 40s a little more, is like kind of softening up a little bit more, growing, but you get remembered as one form of yourself. So like the Darwin, it's like, oh yeah, you're survival of the fittest guy. Good. We'll put you on a shirt. There's your beard. There's a little diagram of a lizard becoming a dinosaur or whatever.
Especially because young men make a splash more, you know, they're like driven, they're valued more. There's like a certain period of time where it's like, wow, the new young guy on the scene. And then like everyone evolves.
Yeah.
And then you go, whoa. Like I have new thoughts on those things that I've said.
Yeah.
But yeah, the idea of so why do we bring flowers to ladies? Well, we'll have to talk about minimal parental investment theory and stuff, which is basically
minimal parental investment theory. I got you these $8.99 flowers. I'm not going to run off.
It's just females typically do the selecting. Whatever gender has the highest cost tends to do the selecting. So we're going to need to get into all that. But basically, flowers are a sign of future life. Where there's a flower, there's probably going to be future fruit, or there's going to be like other mammals around that you can hunt or things like that, especially if you're a human. And so there's value there. So when we talk about hunter and gatherers, hunters there's a lot of like blowback about hunters, like, oh, the hunter gatherers, they hardly even ate any meat. My hunch is that hunters were doing quite a bit more than just bringing back the trophy of whatever the kill was.
What is this? They weren't eating meat? They weren't eating lots of meat, hunter-gatherers? I thought that's all they were eating.
Hunter-gatherers subsided quite a bit on gathering. But there was, some gathering hunter-gatherers would And hunter-gatherer tribes would, you'd need protein from meat, but you would go months at a time without meat. You'd also go months at a time only eating meat, in winter times and stuff like that, where you could store meat really easily. Yeah. I happen to be a meat guy myself. Sorry, non-meat people. But
the subscriber count just goes.
But so how do I say this? So where there's flowers, there is future resources. There's future berries. There's future mammals. Most likely. We're detached from that now because we're detached from the earth, but hunter-gatherers would have been specifically like really honed into that. And you're out hunting or whatever you're doing, but you're also scouting for new territory. You're scouting for other resources. If you can bring back anything that impresses anybody ever, like it doesn't just need to be a kill. You can find a fucking cool rock or a water source or anything else, right? So,
and flower means guess what's next.
So like you get concert
concert tickets. You're not at the concert now, but check out what we're doing on Saturday.
When you don't have the ability to speak yet, free language, and you can bring back a fucking honest indicator of future resources.
Flowers predate What Up Girl?
That's what I'm saying.
That's pretty cool.
I'm saying I think that you go, this is an honest indicator. I know I've found the good, what's also interesting about it is that if you pick flowers, no one knows exactly where you got them from. You're the holder of that information too. So it's a source that and the more flowers you can bring back, the more that you're showing. I'm pretty good at finding the diversity of flowers that you can bring. One month you bring this kind of flower, the next week you bring this other kind of flower. You're good at finding these potential signs of life. Some of them taste good, some of them smell good, they smell like future resources. And that could have been the early origins of before we could even talk. We could have been as potentially gifting flowers to ladies.
That's nuts. Or should I say berries? That's all the time we have. And that's how Saint Valentine discovered Thanksgiving.
So, point is, cool idea. Impossible to say if it's true. And so there's a lot of stuff like that along the way that we're going to be talking about next time. And I knew there's going to be plenty for more than 2 mating episodes.
It's the fucking evolution of the fucking thing.
It is. I thought we'd get further along than I did, but it's just so much to get into. I'm so excited for next episode. But we should, if you want to just have fun, like bullshitting about Valentine's Day, other this and that, we can do that too. I don't know. We can talk about it off air.
We'll throw it in there. I mean, how much can we talk about that guy?
Yeah.
I don't even know what. No, Saint Valentine.
Oh,
I know nothing about him.
I looked up because I looked up the history of other things, and I looked up this one, and I got to be in a certain mood for certain things, and I'm always in the mood to think about evolution, to read about it, and like watch animal documentaries and stuff like that. But I looked into the history of Valentine's Day, and I was just like, this is just some more fucking bullshit. Like some modern, I'm sure it's super interesting if you're in the mood to dig into it, but sometimes like, yeah, the fucking pagan, this and that, Christian, this and that. Like,
yeah, it's probably,
who cares?
They hijack a pagan holiday and then Hallmark markets it and grows it to what it is now. And we recognize that it's bullshit, but at the same time have fun, much like with anything. It's like, well, I don't, which I understand if you're like that. Like, I don't celebrate Valentine's Day. I don't do Christmas. It's all like, I'm fully aware of all that. That used to be more me. Yeah, it's fun to go to the mall. It's fun to listen to pop music. It's fun to eat McDonald's. It's fun to imagine with Richard Feynman on YouTube illegally for now.
Well, to get a. What do you mean? Is he?
There's a Richard Feynman a video called "It's Fun to Imagine." I think that's the title of it, and it's on YouTube. But I never know how long stuff will stay on YouTube because Viacom owns it or Disney pulls it for copyright infringement. So it's not illegal in that it's like he's smoking crack and like with underage boys or something, but it's illegal in that someone
smoking crack with underage.
He was wild. He did get naked and play bongos at strip clubs. That's true.
You had me until the strip clubs part. Is like,
that's true.
Get naked, play bongos. Yes. That's just like straight up McConaughey shit. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows that's the dream. Everyone knows that's what you should be doing. If you have the confidence and success that Matthew McConaughey has, of course, you just fucking get naked and play bongos. You lose me at the strip club, though.
I might be combining them all into one thing. He might have just gone to strip clubs. He might have just played bongos.
Okay.
Naked at home. Maybe he didn't do them both, but I don't know. He was a curious character. What do you care what other people think?
Yeah, I don't. I to a degree.
He's great. He's a great character. He's just a fun guy to listen to, talk to, and absolutely. A very good guy at breaking it, like learn stuff from first principles. Like if you can't describe it from first principles, and if you're having to just reference this guy and that guy in this book, then it's all out the window.
You gonna teach me about Richard Feynman one of these days?
Let's do a fine episode. I'll reread the books because I've read two of his books, and I've read one of. Great. It'll be a fun one. Also, I wanted to see if you've heard of Eric Wargo and his work on time loops, and he has. It's weird because it meets with determinism in a way, but it also meets with the mysticism because if time loops and you get messages from yourself from the future. That's kind of a mystical thing, but the way in which he describes it, it's more like at the quantum time level, not in the magical woo-woo way. And he even he disproves some, maybe not disproves, but his hypothesis disproves certain things like remote viewing, when people think that, or when people, close their eyes and they can see what's going on in another room. And they've done studies where people can read what is written on a board that's written down in a room somewhere else. But the theory is not that they are magically going there and reading the board, but rather they have the future information of when the results are revealed. So all of the time loops back. So they're remembering from the future when the answer was told to them. They never actually spirited there, but and
as long as I'm distant enough away from a manic episode, I can have that conversation for sure. Because
we'll test you.
I have been there, done that. Hoofda. One thing
great
to have a fun, speculative, philosophical conversation about, quite another to feel the real implications of that horrifying situation.
I should be careful around that. But Michael Garfield introduced me to him, and I think it'd be fun to do a precognition episode.
Let's do it. I'm up
there's
for
something
it.
to it.
Anytime you want.
It's
I only
woo,
steer
but it's
this
not.
ship when it needs steering. You can take the wheel anytime. All right, my friend.
The age of the flat Earth.
This is fun. You sweet honey bears out there. You beautiful mystical mummies. We very much appreciate you guys. Hope you have a wonderful Valentine's Day season, the weekend before or after, on the day, or whatever you end up doing, even if you're by yourself or whatever else.
Even if you're going through a divorce, have a great night.
Yeah, just pick the holidays are such a nice way of like finding whatever silver lining to celebrate. Like any cause for celebrating some bullshit, I'm all for. Even if it's at the, oh man, I had a horrific, on a personal note, like there's a girl I was like chatting with and super interested in, and went on some dates and stuff, but I'm like stuck in a position where I can't, like, I don't know, it's just new, and like I can't move places right now
because of COVID, or what?
COVID, finances, like figuring out where I want to move to, everything else, and then she met someone else recently, and I just went through this horrific. Like, it wasn't about her. It's just about my life circumstances of not being able to, and like feeling stuck where I am. And just like, the 7 subselves that we talked about, it just it just took all of my 7 subselves and just ripped them down to a pit of despair for like 2 or 3 days of like,
even disease avoidance.
Absolutely horrible. Not disease avoidance. Good call though. But like survival ability to accrue resources. Like didn't want to talk to friends. My status garbage. All of it. Like,
you got to have high status.
Yeah, and all of it just down. And then I just went on a real binge drinking for like 2 or 3 days. Just like, I was just like, I'm just going to shoot down to the bottom like as fast as I possibly can.
I knew you'd be back.
Did. And I bounced right off of it. Easy peasy. Good as new. As soon as I hit that bottom, I was like, "Oof, doesn't get any worse than this." And I was like, "Yep, you're right." And then, all right, that was a rough 3 days.
Yeah, unplug, replug. Unplug, plug back in. Get that router moving again.
Yeah. But I only share that because there's a lot of people in that position with Valentine's Day situations and the special dark things that can come along with mating
happy
behavior.
Singles Awareness Day.
So we'll hopefully get into a little bit of that too in the next episode. You guys are awesome. This is an especially long one. 12 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 hours, 12 minutes. Yeah.
Oh, damn.
Sorry, I'm having trouble reading. Yeah. But that's support us on Patreon. It's ad free.
Patreon.com/mindunderpod.
Most importantly, tell all your friends to check out our show. If we have 5 times the listeners that we have right now, we're going to be in real good shape. You know what? That's not bad. We're not even a year in, and we're like 1/5 of the way that we need to be, in my book, a successful podcast.
Yeah.
So it's very close.
Yeah, let's not say 5x. Let's just say double it, and then once they already doubled it, it's like, oh, actually that didn't go through. Can you double it again?
I say convince 5 people. 5 people to listen and subscribe.
I don't know. we can try, but you know how I say, don't make your New Year's resolution read 10 books. Make it read 2 books. Or read 1 book.
All right,
tell one friend.
Give us 3. Give us 3 friends. Tell 3 friends. You're saying 1.
Compromise.
I say 3. I say give us 3.
Tell 1 friend, but look into their eyes without blinking. Like, just really focus. Like,
okay, tell 2 people, but lie to them. Tell 2 people but lie about everything. Is that fair?
Fair to me. Sounds like a good way to go out.
All right. Well, until next time.
Keep on salivating, honeys. Ding.